that's fine with me. So I want to say hello to TBS and thank you for the opportunity to speak. When the synagogue originally reached out to me about doing a temple talk, they asked me to conduct a lesson on how to make masks. And since not everybody has a sewing machine and masks are now pretty widely available, I thought it would be a lot more interesting to discuss how the mask making project came to be, how the community came together to create what I think is an inspiring grassroots movement, and what the remarkable combination of energy, enthusiasm, and compassion displayed by our local volunteers taught me about how much we can all accomplish when we work together. So the first thing I want to do is provide a little context, especially for those of you who might not be aware of the Making Masks project. I'll be switching over to a little bit of a slideshow just to make things more interesting, so bear with me. The whole thing began when our community was really only just coming to grips with the realities of the coronavirus. The Rabbit's ShopRite Coronavirus 2020 update had just launched on Facebook, and the shul had just made the difficult decision to close the building. Nursing homes across the country had begun shutting down to visitors, schools were closing, and we were all spending our time either trying to find toilet paper and hand sanitizer or acquainting ourselves with our new lifeline to work, friends, and family, Zoom. We were all in varying states of shock, despair, panic, and more than anything else, helplessness. While watching a morning news show on March 20th, I learned that Deaconess Hospital in Indiana was experiencing such a shortage of personal protective equipment that they had published a mask making pattern and had put out a call to the public looking for people who could help. By way of background, I've been sewing ever since my mom gave me my first sewing machine for Mother's Day, the year that I was expecting my daughter Meryl, who's on this call. That gift represented a leap of faith since I'd pretty much failed sewing in 7th grade home ec. But her idea was that it was time for me to start sewing Halloween costumes for my twin boys who were almost 2, and that I could practice by making maternity clothes for myself. I did both, and I've been sewing since then, torturing my children with matching homemade outfits and then quitting those efforts after they rebelled and sticking to the twice-a-year project of sewing Halloween and Purim costumes for them, and then later for our grandchildren. Looking at the Deaconess mask making pattern, I knew that this was something I could do. And by 8:30 that morning, I'd posted on the Woodcrest neighborhood group page, attaching the article about Deaconess, and I wrote a quick note saying, I'm trying to find out if anybody in this group works for any of the local hospitals experiencing a mask shortage, and if so, whether these would be helpful to them. If so, I need their contact information. I know I could make a couple dozen per night and more on the weekends, and I bet I'm not alone in wanting to find a way to help. I also would appreciate if any medical professional on here can tell me whether these would be helpful or effective for the elderly or the immunocompromised. Within hours, I had 69 public responses and dozens of private ones, largely from people who wanted to help, but also from facilities who were in desperate need. By the next day, I was so overwhelmed by trying to track responses on the Woodcrest neighborhood group page that I had to set up a dedicated Facebook page called Making Masks. I included a pattern that was perfected with the help of local doctors to make it more wearable and suitable for their needs. It had a YouTube video and a wish list of supplies, and we were off. Over the course of about 70 days, we made and distributed more than 7,000 masks. To give you a sense of what the Making Masks project looked like and what it accomplished, I'll just run through a couple of data points and scenarios. We quickly realized that the most efficient way to make the project work was to gather all of the supplies needed to create the masks, and then to package them up into kits of raw materials that mask makers could pick up, sew, and then return to us for distribution. We accepted absolutely no money for the project, and we never spent a cent to create and distribute those 7,000 masks. Our efforts were entirely supported by community contributions, with people from TBS and the Cherry Hill, Voorhees, and Marlton community working together to spread the word, gather, drop off supplies ranging from elastic and fabric and thread to pipe cleaners and Ziploc bags needed to further our efforts. The fabric we collected ranged from people's old tablecloths and scraps left from previous projects to yards of material that people ordered for us from Amazon and Joann just because they wanted to help. We got boxes of t-shirts from the Esther Robb Holocaust Museum and the Goodwin Education Center. Those are the same thing. Custom templates fabricated to cutting fabric easier. We had interior decorators donating entire bolts of fabric, and entrepreneurs whose business could no longer use their themed fabric to make bar and bat mitzvah favors, donating their entire inventory. The central drop-off and pickup point was our front door. Yards of fabric would be brought in and distributed to volunteers who cut the fabric into the size that the mask makers needed. My daughter, who's on the line, who is a kindergarten teacher, came home and helped me organize the operations so that kits could be assembled quickly. Left on that same front step for pickup, and mask makers would message me to let me know they were done with their kits and ready to make another 20, 30, or 50 at a time. All the while I was fielding messages from people who were in need. In some cases, it was an individual looking for a single mask for themselves or their mother who needed to go for chemotherapy. I had people reaching out to let me know that Lionsgate needed masks, that Olive needed masks, that physicians in the obstetrics department at Virtua were being asked to reuse the same N95 masks in labor and delivery for a week at a time, and they needed fabric masks. Cooper Foundation, it just went on and on. The community members who work to gather and collect materials and cut fabric and make masks and then deliver them to those in need deserve all of the credit for this effort. All I did was coordinate. That handsome guy in the corner is our grandson, Asher. And of course, the real heroes are the first responders who received the masks and who were on the front lines of the crisis, putting themselves at risk every day for us. Though some of these people were familiar faces, there are others who I had never met and still have never met. I told everybody that my neighbors must have thought I was running a drug operation out of my home because we had cars, bikes, and pedestrians arriving at our home at all hours in a constant stream, with bags being picked up and dropped off nonstop. I can't go another minute without acknowledging the miles and miles that my husband, Zach, who's running this show, logged at all hours and on a moment's notice, picking up and dropping off materials and masks, not to mention his good-humored acceptance at having a good portion of our normally quiet home entirely dedicated to the project. To give you an idea of the scope of the volunteer effort, consider this. We had 45 mask makers sewing masks, 5 people who were constantly vying to drive masks to deliver them to recipient healthcare facilities, 21 individuals who did nothing but cut fabric into 8x16 rectangles, and more than 70 individuals who helped in ways ranging from soliciting fabric donations to providing their extra sewing machines for those who were willing to revive their own junior high home ec sewing skills. People donated bed sheets, old and new, t-shirts, other clothing, spools of elastic, and even surgical wrap material from which we made special protective masks for physicians. In terms of the 7,000 masks we distributed, our largest recipients were Olive and Lionsgate, though we also gave hundreds to Federation, to Voorhees Pediatric Facility, to the Cherry Hill Fire Department, to the Philadelphia hospitals, including Penn, Temple, Jefferson, Presbyterian. We donated to New York Presbyterian, which was all over the news. And we heard from nursing homes that would call and say they needed masks, and we would just send them dozens. We gave to homeless outreach organizations, to Camden Health Department, and our local National Guard, which supervised and provided aids at testing sites throughout the state of New Jersey. They got 600 masks. I was particularly proud when I was contacted by an organization that had ordered N95 masks for their employees, only to find that they weren't comfortable for their work environment and they were looking for fabric masks. We quickly made a swap. We made them masks donated from donated bed sheets in exchange for 270 N95 masks that we donated to Cooper Hospital. Speaking for myself, I have to say that the project was the most satisfying thing I've ever done outside of having my 3 kids. Both its success and scope were not only beyond my wildest dreams, but something I never planned or anticipated. Whoever coined the term grassroots effort may have found themselves in just as accidental a position as I had, watching an organization spring up and flourish around them. The feedback that I received from the volunteers made it clear that for all of the good that the masks we were distributing did, it was only half of the success of the program. Just as important was the fact that it gave hundreds of people a way to support local first responders, to fight back against the pervasive helplessness of the moment, and to take back some level of control. Whether it was as simple as clicking onto Amazon's website and ordering 1,000 pipe cleaners, or helping their 80-year-old mother dust off a long dormant sewing machine to sew, despite the very real problems of forgetting how the machine worked and the pains of arthritis. We had mothers and daughters sewing side by side, neighbors who'd never met recognizing each other as participants in the mask making project simply because they were carrying bags to or from the mask house. Every time we opened the door to our house, we found contributions, notes of support, inquiries as to how complete strangers could help. Last week, our country lost an icon who dedicated his life to getting things done, even in the face of seemingly impossible odds. John Lewis once said, "If you come together with a mission and it's grounded with love and a sense of community, you can make the impossible possible." That's what we all discovered during the mask making project, that people who had thought themselves helpless in the face of a pandemic, in the face of imposed isolation and the very justified fear of isolation and loss, could take seemingly small actions to make a big difference. Though the PPE shortage in our area has happily been resolved and our state has led the nation in its response to the coronavirus crisis, the mask making project's success and lessons have stuck with me. And they taught me that small actions can lead to really big results. We're wrong when we think that we're helpless in the face of crisis, and we're wasting our energy, our intellect, and our passion if we sit home and think there's nothing we can do to help. For me, the mask making project has created a natural progression to the Social Advocacy Committee that Rabbi Lindemann asked me and Zach to coordinate. We had been in the process of organizing, meeting with our committee members, and establishing priorities and guidelines just before the pandemic shut the shul's doors. But we've continued to plan and to prioritize. Our members had already connected with Moms Demand and HIAS when we were suddenly challenged by the very real issue of racial injustice that the murder of George Floyd has brought to the forefront of the nation's conscience. We have our work cut out for us, but my experience with the mask making project has shown me that when we work together, we can make a real difference. I'm incredibly grateful for the serendipity that the mask making project represented and the timely lesson it taught me about how small actions can have a big impact. Zach and I and the other members of the committee hope that in the coming days, you'll visit the social advocacy page on the TBS website and respond to our invitation to participate. Our first program will invite you to watch a documentary and then explore the topic of racial injustice in our society and how you too can make a difference. The committee has plans to engage with the League of Women Voters, to provide valuable voting information, to host events and outreach addressing the issue of gun safety, and to advise as to how we can work with HIAS to advocate on behalf of immigrants to the United States who are confronting challenges similar to what Jews confronted in the first half of the 20th century. I appreciate your attention. I look forward to answering your questions, but one more thing. Though I moved beyond mask making instructions, I realize some people may still want them or may still need them. Please don't hesitate to contact me directly at cherryhillmasks@gmail.com if that's the case. That's the end of my spiel. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'm happy to field them. Anybody?
Go, Mom.
Thanks, Mayor.
So can I speak now?
Yeah, we hear you, Minna.
Now you can hear me. I wonder if I can suggest that some of my friends who aren't TBS members might want to be part of this. Is that okay? I mean, to watch your some of your I love the movies that you've suggested and readings, but if you're going to have a program, can we invite others to, you know, encourage others to watch the programs that you have in mind that you're planning?
Minna, my feeling is that if anybody wants to help, we welcome the help. This is,
Sure.
you know, it takes a village. There are a lot of big issues out there in terms of, you know, sharing the link to Zoom meetings or whatever we're going to have. I think that you should feel completely free to do that, and we're glad.
And it's very educational. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sharing, just so you know, we're not operating in a vacuum. We're sharing information on a constant basis with Sabrina Spector is running programs at JCRC. We're in constant contact with McCore Shalom. I'm on their list. They're on my list.
Good.
So, and you know, we're reaching out all over the place. Zach has been in touch with Cory Booker's office. He's made outreach to League of Women Voters. Alan reached out. Alan Blocker is on this call. He reached out to one of the local shuls to find out what they were doing. So this is very much a community effort.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, Terri.
Well, you sewed masks for me, or your daughter did.
For people who are interested, who basically want to get involved and don't know where to start, they're feeling overwhelmed, there's so much out there, what would you say are the best resources and small steps they could take to sort of start to get more involved with anything going on, whether it's the election, whether it's Black Lives Matter, gun violence, anything like that?
So you mean in terms of the Social Advocacy Committee?
Yeah.
I would start on TBS's website because we have been extremely diligent about looking for links to events and notices and art shows and all kinds of resource material in terms of books, movies, essays on all of these topics. I'll tell you that when the members of our committee initially met right before the pandemic, we started meeting, I guess, in November to narrow our focus a little bit. But we started out with a really wide range of topics and just realized that we had to keep it more narrow in order to get anything accomplished. But we're posting, so we're posting information specific to immigration, gun safety, and of course, racial inequities. But we're also going to post if there's something that comes to our attention about, certainly we're going to be leading an active voter registration and voter education campaign and anything else as it comes up. Unfortunately, things can change pretty quickly in our world. So we don't limit ourselves, and I definitely urge everybody to check the Facebook page because TBS is posting. If you're on Facebook with TBS, yes. The Social Advocacy Committee postings go up, I think, on Sunday. The e-newsletter keeps everybody updated on what's going on, and we have our own dedicated page on TBS's community pages now.
Terri?
Hi,
Michael. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring to your attention my Robin's daughter, who lives in LA, in Venice Beach, California, brought to my attention a New York Times bestseller called How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi, National Book Award-winning author of Stamped from the Beginning.
It's on our page.
This is an amazing book.
Yeah, we have it up on our page right now.
Great.
Thank you. It's a tremendous book.
Yeah, wanted to point that out to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So maybe we have to get more more of your information out there. I don't know how you do that, but you know, that would be good.
We're
to reach
relying
more
on you,
people.
Minna. You know everybody.
Yeah, she does.
Not really.
I don't see.
Um,
My name's Jody Feldman. I just wanted to say that I am on the board of the Camden County League of Women Voters. So if anybody, I'd be happy to connect with you. You know, a lot of our efforts were obviously stymied by COVID, but we're trying as hard as we can to be where we should be to help this effort. And one of our, in addition to voter registration, the census is also a very pressing matter. Camden County has only 66 point, I don't know what it is today, but only 66.1 or 2% of Camden County residents have responded to the census. And that means we're talking about $22 billion for New Jersey every year for the next 10 years is at stake. And so I know that there's been a push to get faith leaders, you know, to be part of that conversation. And so it's just one of the elements of what we're trying to do this year in particular. But I'd be really happy to talk to you and we have a really great board we're just trying to be in the community as much as we can during these difficult circumstances.
Jody, we welcome that. We did reach out to your organization, and actually my husband, Zach, was one of the people mentioned in your most recent e-newsletter that went out, welcoming him to the committee. I think he spoke with somebody named Ed.
Oh, okay, great. Yep.
Yep,
okay.
We're on it.
Terrific.
We're on it. We're in
Terrific.
touch with you, and it's in the works. Thank you.
Okay.
Are they still, excuse me, are they still doing the census?
Absolutely.
I didn't know that because I did it right early as soon as it came out. So you
they've
mean to tell
extended
me, you mean to tell me that people actually didn't reply to it?
That's right.
That's so few people replied to it. That's so hard. I mean, I know you're telling the truth, but it's amazing me that that's how it would be.
Yeah. It's a really, there's in some communities in Camden County, I mean, all over the country, but in some communities, there's a lot of suspicion about the government collecting your data. And so there is a barrier to overcome to try to get people to self-report and to believe that it's in their interest to self-report. And as you can imagine, if you listen to the news, I don't think you have to be crazy to be worried about that. And so I think that it's, you know, it's just incumbent on all of us to win that conversation that the benefits far outweigh the risks. I don't need to I don't mean to take this over at all.
No, Jody, in fact, I'm really, really glad you're on, and I'm really glad you spoke up. We would love to do a program with the League of Women Voters, even if it's, you know, on Zoom. We've got the resource, and let's use it. If you have someone who can speak with our community, and specifically going back to my TED Talk, how we can help. What is, if there are members of our shul can do some kind of outreach to promote the census within an organization. I mean, we're all about it.
Well, I think that if we could, there are the beginnings of some interfaith efforts, but the truth is a lot of it, as I said, was getting off the ground in February, early March. And it's really been very difficult to sustain because there are so many, the undercounted communities in particular are very much in survival mode, you know. And so doing the census is not really top on their list for understandable reasons. And it's not necessary. I think there can even be a sense from leaders, it's just not the most urgent thing on their plate. Getting dinner on the, you know, getting food in people's houses is the most urgent thing when you have people lining up for miles and miles for food. So I think there's an understanding, but I think there've been so many obstacles. You know, I think the citizenship question really put a damper on people's perception of the census and the lack of just overall education about why it's important. It's a really tough nut to crack, even though it doesn't seem like it should be.
Jody, can I ask you a question?
Sure. Hi, Minna.
Hi. I, I remember putting it in like Bonnie did immediately. And we even had some discussion about it at one of our meetings, that Zoom meetings, because there was one question that people had a little angst about. But nonetheless, do you have track of, obviously, of the people who sent it in, you know that. But what about the people who didn't ever respond? Is there some way to remind them that they didn't respond?
Well, yeah, I mean, I did a postcard during COVID. I had a bunch of volunteers. We sent out almost 3,000 postcard reminders. Like 30 people. We did a census postcard drive. I still probably have that many postcards left. I mean, we could talk about, I think that I've sat on the Camden County Complete Count Committee, and I think we could talk about whether we think we could get another army of people to sit down and do more postcards. I probably still have 2,500 names that, you know, I went back to work and whatever. That I got volunteers to do almost 3,000 cards in a week, and that was kind of my threshold at that moment because I was going back to work. But I think I have connections on the Complete Count Committee of Camden County. I think that if there's interest in that in this group, we could look at that. Absolutely. I don't think it would take me long to make that happen, actually.
So Jody, not only do I think that we can help you with that in particular, but let me just bring it back a little bit to something else that actually was mask related, and that is one of the major recipients of the mask making project was actually the Camden County Health Education Department. They received I think probably they were one of the biggest recipients, possibly as many as 1,000, that we were connected through Federation. And I'm wondering if there's a way to sort of combine those efforts. In other words, if I were to reach out to my contact who received all of these masks and who was training people to make masks on her own, we were giving her the instructions. And if she's in a position where she's still distributing masks, is there any way that those efforts can be combined?
Absolutely. I think we can. I think we can garner the resources that we need to do anything like that. I think that it would not take very much effort for me to ask for the county to print somewhere between 0 and 5,000 flyers, postcards, anything like that. I think that I'm in contact with the Complete Count Committee people. I know they've been working very hard at doing it at food distribution places. So it's not that all the efforts shut down. It's just that when you look, you can go to 2020census.gov on any given day and look up any county, any town, any city, any state. And we've been kind of stuck at, what did I just say? 66 point, something like that. Now, the other thing that's a little complicated is that apparently I just learned that when enumerators go around house to house, which they're beginning to do, that those numbers are not going to get reflected on the website because the website is reflecting self-response. So I think that's a little weakness in the system that I can probably find out more about, but I don't know more about it right now.
So Jody, I know I saw Alan had his hand up and I want to give him a chance.
Okay, yes. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to monopolize.
Do me a favor. Would you go on chat and just send me a private message, your contact information, and then we'll get you together with not only with our social advocacy committee to address this particular need, but also hopefully to get somebody to speak with us regarding election education.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to monopolize.
No, we're glad you're here. Alan, did you want to?
If I might, if I might, in addition to the amount of aid or distribution from the federal government that the census is dependent on, perhaps even more important is that's how the Congress gets reallocated. If people in New Jersey don't fill out the forms, somebody else is going to get our votes. So that's important. And the house-to-house contacts are likely to be a lot harder this year than it was 10 years ago. Because people first of all, they're going to have a hard time getting people to go out and do this. Because I know I have volunteered to sit at the polls on election day. I didn't do that in primaries for the same reason, and that's part of the issue. So it's really important that we stress to anybody to make sure that they submit their census information.
Absolutely. I want to note that, first of all, hi Sharon, and also say that one of my other kids is on now. One of the twins that was in the cow costume is on now too. Hi Grant.
I've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
I have.
So he still looks cute.
Does anybody have any other questions? Anything that they want to say? Anybody who isn't already on our social advocacy committee need any information about getting involved?
Just keep me informed and I'll do what I can.
Does anybody need a mask?
We'll keep you
No.
informed, and don't worry.
Thank you for all you've done.
Terry, you can contact me with any information and help that you need.
Mhm.
Aside from sending postcards, are you allowed to call people?
But they don't have the form
Oh.
anymore, you know.
I'm not really, first of all, only the census enumerators are actually allowed to identify individual people to go and do the census. But the truth is, the census is online. It takes about 7 minutes to do it online.
Yeah, it was very easy. I did it right away, but I know there's, I visit a woman in a nursing home until the virus took over. She got the census and she didn't know what to do with it. So I gave it to her daughter-in-law who filled it out for her, because that's what happens. A bunch of them came there and most of these people really had no idea it would end up in the trash. But her daughter-in-law is sharp enough that when I saw it, I said to her, do you want to do this for her? She said, I absolutely. And she took
In
it.
truth, people who live in nursing homes and assisted living facilities are counted under a mechanism called group quarters. And the institution is supposed to count them because the Census Bureau understands that, there may be limitations to their ability to report themselves. And my mom actually lives at Lionsgate, and I contacted them to make sure that they were going to do it under group quarters, and they said yes. And it's true for students. It was true for students who were listed as in on-campus housing in universities and colleges as well, that if they were living in on-campus housing, it was the responsibility of the university to count them there because they have an impact on that local community. And so at some point, a policy decision was made that that's the community they should be counted in.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for all that you do. It's wonderful.
Yes, thank you for all these. The mask making sounds amazing for those of you who did it. It's really tremendous.
But it was a great project, very rewarding, it sounds like. So
Keep us
thank
in
you
the loop.
for sharing it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Send an email to
Ready to
She's on her way.
who's that? Okay. Can we leave?
Is it time to say goodnight, Gracie?
Good night, Gracie. I see people are
Good night.
leaving, so I guess it's over. I like to
Take
stay at the
care.
party as long as there's still food.
The Jewish goodbye, right?
All right.
Perfect.
But that means you have to clean up.
If there's still food, I'm
Take
not
care, all.
leaving. Okay. Okay, good night, Michelle.
Can anybody
night,
hear
Tom.
me?
Yes, hi, Terry.
Now I can.
Hi, thank you all. I don't know, we lost our connection, but let's see. There I am. Thank you, everybody, for coming in and listening. We lost our connection, fortunately not in the middle of the presentation, but I really appreciate everybody coming, and I hope that you learned something, and I, more importantly, hope to see you all at Social Advocacy.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks for all you do, Terry.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.